Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reportedly approving a plan for the Israeli Defense Forces to fully occupy Gaza, forcing Hamas to release the remaining hostages still in their grasp. Telling a prominent Israeli journalist, quote, Hamas will not release hostages without total surrender. If we do not operate now, the hostages will die of starvation and Gaza will stay under Hamas's control. The mandate for a deal was broad, but we did not get agreement, so we will go for occupation. The Israeli military reportedly controls nearly 70% of the Gaza Strip. This expansion would allow the IDF to conduct operations where they believe the hostages are currently held. Hamas releasing harrowing footage of an emaciated Israeli hostage inside Gaza over the weekend, drawing international criticism and outrage in Israel. Joining me now, principal architect of the Abraham, former senior director for National Security Council, Robert Greenway. Robert, good morning. I'm so grateful to have you on this morning with this new news coming out from Israel. The rhetoric that you hear from Benjamin Netanyahu, is that this seems to be the way that the Israelis are going. Your reaction?
Great to be with you. Thanks for having me on. I think two things became inevitable once we saw international opinion and European capitals begin to recognize, quote unquote, a Palestinian state. The first is that Hamas's position would become solidified. They'd become less likely to negotiate a return of the hostages or a ceasefire of any kind. And the second inevitable consequence is Israel then is hardening his position in reaction to that. And yet another ceasefire has been rejected by Hamas in a long string of rejections. And the Israeli position now is a complete return to Hamas. And having rejected that, Israel then finds itself in a position where there's no other incentive or option but for them to pursue a conclusion of the war and use the military instrument as the chief end of doing so. And if international opinion continues to be inverted and blame the victim instead of the criminal, Hamas, the terrorists that opened up and initiated this war on October the 7th, then you can see Israel's position is well justified. The consequences, of course, are going to be borne out in the coming days. But I think it's inevitable to see the consequences of capital decisions to recognize the Palestinian state has not, in fact, had the desired outcome at all.
Well, how does this work with our partners, our international allies? I mean, when you've got Canada and other members of the European saying that they want to see a Palestinian state, they want to see Palestine. Same time, that's going to obviously there's going to be some blowback on the Israelis for that. And I would assume, the United States, because of our military and diplomatic support for Israel. At the same time, it doesn't seem to me that the partners in the Middle East, and this is, again, your area of expertise with the Abraham Accords, seems to me that whether it's Qatar or the UAE or the Saudis, they want this war over. And it doesn't seem to me like they are in any way, shape, or form supporting Hamas staying in Gaza.
Right. They're threading a difficult needle. Many are, but those in the region have increasingly taken a stance against Hamas and recognizing they're the principal obstacle to a resolution of the conflict that Hamas initiated. And so the rejection of yet another deal that many in the region, helped negotiate with the United States, rejected by Hamas, difficult for them to support. And so while they've threaded the needle, they increasingly come out against Hamas and recognize Hamas can no longer retain control of the Gaza Strip after this conflict ended. It was their retention of the Gaza Strip after 2005 that led to this inevitably. And so I think you're seeing increasingly the odds shift in the region in favor, oddly enough, of Prime Minister Netanyahu and the Israeli government, while European capitals like France, UK, Canada, Norway, Ireland, and Spain are turning against Israel.
Yeah, certainly. Now, what about that relationship? Kind of give me a further on how this would change or affect the relationship that Israel has with its Middle East neighbors.
So I think the region has always been one of security. What Israel has done since October the 7th and dismantling Hezbollah in Lebanon, with the inversion in Syria and the overthrow of Bashar al-Assad, what you've seen also in the confrontation of the 12-day war with Iran directly, and also actions taken by both the United States and Israel against the Houthis in Yemen, have resoundingly changed the security calculations and effectively lowered the bar to entry so that Israel's partners in the region now see it a little bit easier for them to align themselves with Israel in the longer term, recognizing that the threat from Iran has been reduced principally because of Israel and the United States. All that's left now is to chart a course toward the future, recognizing that reality.
Right.
And the economic cooperation, the imperative that was behind the Abraham Accords remains. They recognize that the goals that they seek is incredibly important for them to have integration, not just with Israel, but also regions and connecting Asian and European markets. This economic imperative, combined with the security concern, allows us fertile conditions for expansion of the Accords.
Okay, I also want to ask you about a spot within the globe right now, Robert, and that's China and Russia. They carried out these military drills in the Sea of Japan in a show of a stronger partnership. Those reportedly have a submarine rescue, joint anti-submarine, air defense, and anti-missile operations and maritime combat component. President Trump confirming that there's these 2 American nuclear subs that were deployed in that region as these drills had ramped up ahead of Steve Witkoff's visit to Russia this week. Here's the president.
On Russia, Mr. President, can you say, have those nuclear submarines been deployed yet to face Russia?
I've already put out a statement, and the answer is they are in the region, yeah, where they have to be.
Can you say what Steve Witkoff's message will be to the Russians? Is there anything they can do to avoid sanctions at this point?
Yeah, get a deal where people stop getting killed. They had a number that just came out that a tremendous number of Russian soldiers are being killed. And likewise, Ukraine, a lower number, but still thousands and thousands of people. And now we're adding towns where they're being hit by missiles. So it's a lot of people being killed in that ridiculous war.
Has become increasingly less indulgent of the Russian position in his attempt to get, rightly, I think, an end to this war that President Putin started. And I think his response to former President Medvedev's comments about positioning U.S. nuclear submarines gets us back to Cold War terminology. In kind to provocative statements and actions on the part of Russia. I think the president doesn't get enough credit for applying economic pressure. Last year, Russia was posting 4.1% GDP growth. This year, it's 1.4%, a complete inversion. They can't sustain the growth of their own economic spending because President Trump has managed to resume control of global energy markets, and that's the principal source of revenue of the Russian Federation. At the same time, these war games, you rightly point out, over the years are accelerating at pace, and the president is mindful that the chief strategic objective here is to prevent close cooperation between Moscow and Beijing while bringing the conflict in Ukraine to a termination. He's taken the right steps. I think increased confrontation is likely in the near term and probably necessary to bring it to an end.
Robert Greenway, we're here on a day where we might see a big change with regards to Israel. Robert Greenway, thank you, sir. We'll be right back, everybody.